you everyone for making time in your day. I hope I don't talk too fast, but we all know tortillas, whether you grew up in a Spanish speaking, English speaking, Portuguese speaking household. And so I thought, you can't use a burned tortilla and you can't unburn a tortilla. So we're going to talk about the guide. This is a guide to combating, burnout. And what I want everybody to know is I'm holding some space for you right now because I doubt that you hold space for yourselves if you're anything like me. And so you have to learn this. This is not a skill that we necessarily get. So, um, first and foremost, this presentation is for anyone, regardless of your background, regardless of your gender, who's ever been told to keep going no matter what. Just push through. So let's talk about watching the comal. And for those who may not know, comal is where you heat the tortillas. So what did Abuelita know? She knew that a tortilla needed the right heat. You can't leave it too long or it's ruined. If you don't cook it long enough, it's doughy. And the right timing is everything. And that most importantly, you cannot unburn a tortilla. And what everyone here on this call, probably working in tech, you're the tortilla now on this comal. And too much pressure equals burnout. Too little pressure or too little engagement equals boredom. I'm sure there's a lot of type A personalities in the group. Timing and balance are everything, and you can't perform once you're burned out. And I think what's so important to understand is need to remember that Abuelita didn't start out making perfect tortillas. She had to learn it. So we're not going to start out knowing how to manage ourselves. But I don't know if any of you have seen that meme where it's like when you suddenly unlock your Abuelita or your mom's magic superpower of being able to turn a tortilla just directly from the heat or directly on fire. You need to learn to flip yourself. You need to learn to make the space. And I'm going to give you some tools to help you do that. All right. So where we come from. Let's understand the cultural roots of this work ethic that drives us and has probably helped a lot of us to get to where we are, but it's not necessarily working for us now. So sacrificio or sacrifice is love. Aguante, which means, is endure, just no matter what. And orgullo, which is pride through performance. So many of us are raised with this, and this programming runs deep. And if you were raised Catholic, it runs probably even deeper. But we're raised tough. So our ancestors, they knew we were going to have to, they endured those hardships. They knew we were going to have to endure these hardships. So they raised us tough so that we can be resilient. But we have to remember that resiliency doesn't have to be ganas no más or just going. If it's done correctly, resiliency, for anybody who's ever done resiliency in their career, it means it needs intentional planning. And you can't carry this alone because you're a bridge. And quite often, I'm sure there's plenty of people on the call who are first generation, US citizens, first generation to go to college, first generation to be in tech, maybe first generation to do a lot of those things. Maybe you're firstborn. There's all these heavy duty things you're carrying. And so maybe your family can't help you navigate this new space that you've entered. And so it's scary, right? But we have to remember that our parents and our abuelos worked around the clock. They did this sacrifice. And so sacrifice does equal love to us. But saying no to work for us feels like betrayal, right? It feels like we're betraying the legacy they've given us. But it's not. And then we're taught to endure at all costs, échale ganas, which is just keep going, and stopping or slowing down feels like we're being lazy. And lazy, as we all know, is just a very bad word, right? And then, as I was mentioning before, having this pride, we're carrying our families, we're carrying their hopes, we're carrying their dreams, their sacrifices. And so for asking for help or stepping back or wanting to put this load down, again, feels like betrayal, but we have to remember we are our ancestors' dreams realized, and so we have to find a different way to move forward with this legacy. So Here's the 5 myths, and there's plenty more, but these are the 5 I wanted to isolate that were handed down. And why these, I want to talk about why these don't serve us in tech, particularly the tech industry. Don't ever say no to work. This is a lack of boundaries. Not all work is equal, and not all work deserves your time or expertise. As you go further into your career, as you go up the ladder in leadership, you're going to recognize that all work is not equal, and you're going to have to be more intentional about the work that you say yes to. Rest equals laziness. This one's probably, honestly, it's one of the hardest things for me. I have trouble relaxing. I joke and I tell my family knows, my friends know, I don't know how to relax. Relaxing is constantly doing work. So you have to learn to grant yourself that grace that I talked about at the beginning. You need to make space for yourself. And it's hard not to, right? Because you're critical. But you need, as you grow into your career, a tired mind can't do the deep work or the strategic planning or the innovative thinking that these roles and these tech roles, whether you're doing it for a company or you're doing it for your own company or yourself, you're not going to be able to move forward with a tired mind. Athletes rest. You're an elite professional. You should rest. Do it yourself. This is one of the hardest ones for me because I had to learn how to delegate big time. Do it yourself, don't burden others. But this is probably a career killer, especially in tech. Isolating yourself will be translated in such a negative way. Not being a team player, being known as someone who just does the grunt work, or someone who doesn't like to collaborate or is difficult to work with, it won't allow you to foster the absolutely critical relationships you'll need to create a viable network and to expand your career and your growth. So I can't emphasize 3 enough because we have such a tendency to, for me, it's like, I'll just do it myself. Or if you want something done right, it's, it's all the, it's all a myth that we tell ourselves that nobody can do it as well as we can. We do it well, but we need to keep growing. We can't be doing the same thing. Number 4, keep going no matter what. This is what we started with on the first page. This is sold to us as resilience. But like I said, resilience requires planning and it requires structure and thoughtfulness. What you need to commit to is safeguarding your space and a commitment to safeguarding your mental well-being. Again, if you're mentally exhausted, then you can't do the work that required to build your own business or do your own creative thinking. Really important and probably one of the hardest ones to do. Working hard is how you prove yourself. This one, I have joked my whole career, and it's not a joke, that I am a workaholic. I now call myself a recovering workaholic. You have to prove yourself through smart, methodical, strategic thinking. You are going to have to work hard sometimes, but you have to work smarter, not harder all the time. You aren't just being paid. And this was the biggest revelation to me early in my career, is I realized that I came from a family of blue collar workers, truck drivers, plumbers, carpenters, and they all built things. And so I always thought of work as something you did. And it was shocking to me to realize that I was still doing, but you aren't being paid to do. You're being paid to think. And that is a different kind of doing. And it requires a different type of approach. You're being paid for what is inside of your head, for your expertise and for your unique perspective. It may not feel like it, especially in the climates that we're navigating right now, but we are experts in a lot of things. So it's okay to work hard. Just don't kill yourself at it. Okay, What does the burnout look like? Because most of us don't know. We're just like, oh, I'm just tired. I'm just tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep. All the excuses, right? We're not, we don't recognize it because it's just dedication to us. That's what we're taught. So, what I did here is I offered these 6 categories and gave some examples. And I want everyone to kind of think of what resonates for you. Um, what does this look like? Mental fog. That's like, it can also be like you feeling constantly confused or a little fuzzy, having trouble remembering. Physical symptoms. I don't know how many people can relate to this, but how many people don't realize it's burnout and they say, oh, it's just my allergies. It's just my allergies. It's not just your allergies. It's your body telling you it's exhausted and it's pushing its limit. And if you keep pushing it, your body will do what your mind cannot. It'll shut you down. And then you're going to be freaking out some more. Emotional numbness, like you're not getting anything out of life. I call it losing my joy. I can't really feel excited. I can't really feel happy. I'm just here. I'm checked out. Withdrawal. You're not interacting with your friends. You're not interacting with your family. The resentment that will inevitably happen with burnout. It'll happen towards your work, towards your coworkers. It's a really ugly spiral that can really begin to happen. But to me, one of the worst ones is the loss of purpose. Kind of goes along with that emotional numbness. That's why I stacked them. You feel like, what am I doing here? I'm not here. Why am I bothering? It's just you have nothing left in the tank. So of course you feel, like you have no purpose. And that's the last thing we need, because if you read the stats, so many Latinos, we have record numbers going into college, but not finishing. We have them going into the tech industry and leaving because of this loss of purpose, because of this burnout. So let's do a reality check with tech. We all know tech is hustle culture. Go, 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 especially if you work for a startup. And I love that environment, honestly. I thrive in it. But when you compound it with this cultural mythology and these burdens that we're carrying, it translates into a hostile culture. So, 77% of tech workers, none of this is going to surprise anybody, are burned out. Latinos are twice as likely to leave. And this is that loss of purpose I'm talking about. Part of it has to do with like not feeling like you belong. So community is very important in this instance. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But 83% Latinos report burnout as a factor in quitting their job. 83%. That's awful. I don't know how else to put it other than that's awful. Tech culture mirrors a lot of what we're learning. Just keep going, never say stop. But we need to reclaim our space. So this is where the work begins. And it may not sound hard. Oh, but this is hard work. And you're not going to get it right first. You're going to keep doing this. I constantly have to revisit these things, especially when life hands you a lot of extra stuff. I'll share a little bit right here before I go into these. My family has experienced a lot of health issues recently, particularly with my younger brother. And it's been absolutely devastating. I am fortunate enough to work with people who understand that and who have given me the space to be able to be there for my brother, for my family, but at the same time, do my work, because my work honestly is a distraction for me. It helps me give some space from constantly being worried. So I have been having to exercise these things tremendously right now. So I know what I'm talking about with the burden. Oh, thank you so much. I see the comments. I'm so excited to see you guys engaging with each other. And yes, I see somebody's comment about recovering from burnout from COVID, 101%. You need to let go of whatever doesn't serve you anymore. And that's Much easier said than done. What we're going to do is we're going to honor where we came from, but that doesn't mean destroying ourselves. That's not what our ancestors wanted for us. They wanted us to have a better life, and we can't have a better life if we're overburdening ourselves and not giving us chance to recover and honestly evolving, right? As a culture, as a people, as a community. So what's our old programming? Never say no. Instead, this needs to change to protect your yes by saying no. Going back to that, not all work is equal. And not all work deserves your expertise. And that's going to be something that you're going to have to tell yourself again and again. You need to realize and own who you are as an expert in your field. Rest is laziness. Rest is recovery. It's how we stay sharp. It's how we're able to deliver. You know, everybody knows what it's like when you're rushing to do something and you're exhausted. And then you look back at your work and you go, oh my God, it could have been so much better. Don't do that. You take the rest. Rest is recovery. Old programming. Do it all yourself. Asking for help isn't weakness. And that's very hard one that I've had to learn. It's actually the opposite. Asking for help, it's leadership. It also helps you be a better leader. Just think about the leaders you've had who showed vulnerability. Didn't you have more respect for them? Didn't you think, oh my God, this is a person, right? This is someone who gets it. Just remember, asking for help isn't weakness. And if you were to ask my spouse, he would say, I'm very bad at that. Why do you not ever ask for help? And it's because that's the way I was programmed. Ignoring how you feel, putting it for all you data geeks out there. I'm a cybersecurity geek, as you saw in my title. What you feel is critical data. It's not weakness. Ignoring it, you would never ignore critical data in your job. So why are you going to ignore the critical data that's coming from your own brain? Listen to yourself. And that's actually a hard thing, to learn how to listen to your own feelings or identify your feelings. Make sure you do that. Sacrifice everything. This is one that runs really deep, but it's quite simply, you can't pour from an empty pot. There's nothing to pour, right? There's nothing to give from that. So these are the things that you need to do for choosing your well-being, is choosing your future. But I'm going to go a step further, because a lot of us are very family or community oriented. It's not just your future by choosing your well-being, but the future well-being of your families, of your descendants, and our communities. If we don't evolve our work ethic to thrive in the modern world, we are just passing down generational trauma. We have to break certain cycles and find new tools for the work that we do. All right. We're the tortilla, remember? Here are some ways to protect the tortilla. Set a stop time. I've put links in this, and I don't know how, I don't know if they'll offer the things, but please, you can find me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to share this deck with folks. There's free meditation timers to remind you to stop. The awakening bell is one I really like, because you can set a big chime and a little chime just to give you some breaks throughout your day. And it's your limit. And it's right there on the internet. It's free. Naming your limits. This is the hardest one. We were not taught as a people to build boundaries. My family, this is a completely new concept in my family. Building boundaries is hard. Building boundaries at work is probably where you should start. Thank you for letting me know that the assets will go over to everybody. The building the boundaries is really tricky, but we have to do it. And I say start with work because sometimes that's easier than starting with familia. But there's 2 links to some really good worksheets to kind of walk you through it if you're not used to this. ask for help publicly. There's no shame in it. Like I said, it's leadership, not weakness. In a meeting, say, hey, I want some input. I want some feedback. Those are easier ways to ask for help, especially if you're not used to this. Schedule non-negotiable rest. Take yourself on a self date, you know, take yourself out to lunch. Give yourself some time. Um, and and you know, just do something fun. But with that said, be careful that you're not, make sure you're doing something fun and engaging for yourself, and that you're not just zoning out and feeding the burnout by exercising a lot of escapism, like video gaming for days or binge watching TV. These are dangerous signs of burnout for folks. That I love to binge watch a show, don't get me wrong. But when we do it too much, yeah, there we go, Brenda. Don't forget to flip the tortilla. Uh, and any kind of tortilla, because it doesn't matter what the tortilla is made of. Once it's burnt, it's no good. Nobody's eating a burnt tortilla, and you can't even bend it or fold it. It's just going to crumble, right? We all know. Find your community. And the last slide I'll go through are just a taste of some of the communities that I've had the distinct pleasure and honor of working with or being a part of. You're not alone. You're not the only one doing this. We all need to get out of our silos and work together. This is what Tequeria is so wonderful, and I've been a member of them for so long. It's I love this space. And I know I don't know how many of you watch SNL, but there was a wonderful skit with Pedro Pascal and Bad Bunny and Marcello, and his Caucasian girlfriend is there with him, and he's talking about anxiety, and it's like, I know, we don't have these mental health issues in my family. Thank you. Yeah, speak to somebody. Yeah, we do have them in our family. We just don't like to admit it. That when I saw that skit, I was like, oh my God, I love all of them so much for making fun of this and at the same time bringing it to light, right? Because if it's a therapist, that's fine. I've included a link for therapy for Latinxes or Latinos, whichever you prefer. That it's a list of therapists that have that cultural context. But a coach, there's so many wonderful coaches that speak specifically to the first gen experience, the firstborn experience, the Latino experience, or a mentor. Reach out to get a mentor. As a mentor or mentee, you're going to learn so much. And then I'm going to just really briefly say, I'm going to remind you of the rule of threes. And this will help with, it's an anxiety reducing technique. It's also a technique to help you make decisions when you're feeling overwhelmed. And ultimately, it's also a survival technique, if any of you have done any survival training. So the decision-making technique is, if it is a minor decision, take 3 minutes to make the decision and then be done with it. If it's a little bit more important, then take 3 hours to make the decision. If it is a life-changing decision, like you got to move or a career change, take at least 3 days. That way you're not just sitting there pining for hours over this small decision. Now, from an anxiety reducing perspective, you're going to take a moment, you're going to stop and look and identify 3 things immediately in your field. You're going to listen for 3 distinct sounds and identify them. And then you're going to move 3 different parts of your body. It sounds really silly and simple, but it makes you ground again, and it helps. And it's real easy. 3, 3, 3, right? The survival is 4 threes, and it is, you can only survive for air for 3 minutes, without air for 3 minutes, without shelter in extreme hot or cold, 3 hours, without water for 3 days, and without food for approximately 3 weeks, give or take. Remember the threes. Life tends to revolve around threes. 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, see, hear, move. So that way it'll keep you going. All right. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. And we forget that. Quite often we're trying to sprint through the marathon and it's just not going to work. Um, and I can't emphasize this enough. I'm going to go through the old and the new. But if you lead or manage other people, modeling boundaries loudly makes you a better leader and it makes your team a better team. Check in with them, foster a culture of inclusiveness, redistributive, work equitably amongst the team, celebrate wins. When I say redistribute work, there's always going to be at least one person on your team who volunteers for everything. You got to keep them from burning out. So that's what I'm talking about. So let's say it out loud when you're logging off. Say, I'm going to block off time for my lunch, or I'm logging off now. Do these things the old way, doing everything by yourself. The new way, we're going to ask for help when we need it. We're going to say, hey, I need this. Saying yes to every request. What do we know? Saying no protects our yes, or saying yes to no more work protects our no. We have to be selective. For any of you that are kind of choosy about your clothes, about your hair, about your food, whatever it is you're choosy about, you need to now be choosy about your work. I see another Marissa in the chat. I love your name too. Working through exhaustion. Oh my gosh, how many times have all of us done this? And it's a point of pride, right? You're like, oh my God, I've been working for 2 or 3 days straight, right? This is our badge, right? Don't do that, because the recovery, I'm telling you, as you get older, that recovery is going to take longer and longer. But also, you will do so much damage to yourself, and you're doing damage to your relationships when you're not giving yourself time. Rest, show up fully, be present for yourself, for your work, for your family. Totally have to unlearn this, Marissa. Absolutely. Carrying every task yourself. And I know a lot of this sounds repetitive, but this is how we reprogram. We have to keep putting in the same ideas. We have to start this reprogramming. Delegate. Grow your team. I thought delegation was a dirty word. I was like, no, I can really do this all myself. And then I realized, look, I'm doing my team a tremendous disservice by trying to do that. So, sprinting until you collapse. No good. Have a long-term approach to your career and to your life. Don't think short-term. A lot of us were taught to think short-term. We were taught to think short-term about money. We were taught to think short-term about work. No. If you want to have a career, you have to think long-term. If you want to have financial success, you need to think long-term. So remember, again, and do all this for your team if you lead people. And it doesn't have to be just at work, but in your community. And this is the slide I was telling you about. You're not alone. Community is survival. It's not a luxury. So thank you, everyone, for spending time with me. It gave you resilience, your cultural programming. It doesn't mean destroy yourself in silence. Protect yourself from the heat. Mind the timing. Rest between batches. Remember, for you and for all the ones you carry, you're the tortilla. Remember when to flip yourself and know when to rest. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your time with me. I've really, really enjoyed this.